Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Music School podcast. I'm Daniel. This is Nate. And in this episode, we are continuing our previous series on myths of running and owning a music school. We were considering in this fall and winter period, having done, 180 something episodes. Actually, I think this is the 180th episode, Nate. We were thinking just about what have we not said? And then as we were talking about that, we were thinking about the idea of, well, what are the overarching themes? What are the prevailing myths or lies that persist? I've been at this job now for 10 years, Nate. And, there's this thought of, well, I think by now this should have gone away. But these are so persistent. They run so deep in how music school owners think about their school that I felt instead of us doing these micro-targeted episodes, let's do big picture and dispel these myths, these rumors, these lies once for all. So we're on to the third one today. Do you know what it is?
I
hope so, because we planned it together.
Well, but what I was going to say just in your nice opening there was that one of the values of actually zooming out, at least for me anyways, I don't know about you, but in this context is like to ask myself, do I still believe parts of these myths? After all these years, 15 years into helping to run Brooklyn Music Factory and grow it to where it is, these types of episodes can be really useful for us because they are an opportunity to use the mirror and be like, hold on, I may not believe all of it, but actually there's 10% of me that still thinks that this is the way it is.
Yes. And maybe you don't believe the myth or the lie, but intellectually, but maybe your behavior is buying into the lie. There's also that component too, kind of that deeper self-sabotaging thing that we humans like to do. So the first week we talked about the delegation delusion. Leadership is handing tasks to others. Second week, we did the expansion mirage, that growth comes from adding more. Today, we're talking about the marketing myth. And the marketing myth at its core is, if I just get more leads, the business will be fine. The business will work. We just need good marketing and getting a lot of people in. That will solve our problems. And the thing about a lie, at least a convincing one, a one that persists, a myth that continues on, is that there is an element of truth in it, which is why people believe it.
Right.
But it's getting into the specificities that help us to unravel. Wait, why is this lie so persistent? Why is it so pernicious? Why does it continue on? And that's what we're really going to unpack here through the issues that owners face, the deeper truth that's true about those issues, and the results that owners get if they believe the lie, and then kind of getting into some of those misconceptions and unpacking those. And I think we can do this in like the next 20 to 25 minutes, Nate. So do you want to jump into it?
I do, and it's a perfect commuter pod for that reason. And can I just frame this episode for us, given where we are in the year right now, recording this? We're deep into annual planning right now with the Founders Forum members, annual planning in our own businesses, right? And let's just decide that we're going to use this episode as owners of schools. So all of our listeners, please make this episode useful by encouraging a different type of critical thinking when deciding what projects to do in the coming year. Because we hear, Daniel, you and I, so often we look at an annual plan and it just says, get more leads.
Yes.
And you're just like, hold on, dude.
You read my mind. Like, this was what I was going to say. Keep going.
I'm going to just frame this and dive right in, because let's just decide that this episode is useful because it's going to keep us from writing that as our goal in the following year. We're going to be more nuanced. We're going to be more defined in setting up our goals.
I said this in the previous episodes. I'm going to say it here again. A consistent theme across these episodes as we were planning them was I began to realize that the issue is that there is a lack of definition and a lack of specificity, which is a contributing factor to why these lies persist. We're going to talk about specific things about this particular myth in the rest of the episode. But something that's true of all of them is that when you just have a general idea of what the problem is and a general solution, you are going to get an uncertain or non-existent result, which really isn't a result at all. You have to get into the specificity of things to actually make an impact, whether it's delegation or expansion and growth or marketing. And so that really leads me to what we've been affectionately calling the constellation of issues. You have a problem if these issues show up, or if this is how you're thinking about it. And I'm just going to mention these, rattle them off, and let's see what comes to the fore, Nate, and if we have anything to say, or if we just jump to the next thing. But if you believe the marketing myth that if I just get more leads, the business will work, what owners tend to do is spend blindly on ads, hire an agency that's local, like they'll Google a couple of local agencies, and because they don't have a specific definition of what it is that they're trying to do, everyone looks just about the same, and it really just comes down to price. Oh, this agency is the cheapest one. I guess we'll go with that one.
Yes.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've seen agencies that were really, really good that charge little, and agencies that were really, really bad that charged a lot. The price doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it. But if you don't know what you're looking for in hiring an agency, then, good luck. Other issues, not tracking the ROI of spend, not tracking basic metrics in your marketing funnel, treating marketing as a silver bullet while ignoring retention, or not really understanding how to impact retention, or not seeing how marketing does affect retention, both your front end, top of funnel marketing, and your back end, bottom of funnel, past the bottom of the funnel, customer marketing. These are all issues that come up when you just believe, hey, let's just throw money at the problem. That'll probably solve it. Thoughts, Nate?
Yeah. I just love that you bring up the concrete action that so many owners take, which is, I need help. I'm going to hire anyone because I need help. Like worst case scenario, you swipe right on an Instagram ad, like hire a virtual marketing team right now and you'll get everything done for you, because you just listed a bunch of reasons why it doesn't work. If you actually aren't clear on where you are today in terms of the return on investment that you've made in marketing, how are you supposed to go to a new team and define what success looks like in the next stage of improvement, right? If you're not actually clear on what you've done to date around your marketing efforts, whether it's paid digital or otherwise, how is a team supposed to support you in that growth? Right? It's again, you said price isn't actually what you're supposed to be focused on right now. Of course not. You're supposed to be focused on, hey, this is what I've done to date in my first 5 years as a music school owner. I've achieved X, Y, and Z through paid digital, print, mailers, whatever it is that you've done. And here's my dashboard to show you what success looks like to date. I am hiring you because I want you to improve on this. Right?
Well,
so
Nate,
your point, yeah.
Oh, no.
Anyways,
finish your thought.
I just love it because, tap the brakes right now. If we just take a rewind tape to this annual planning idea, one thing you can be really precise about, let's say you come away from this episode, because we're going to dive deep into these myths and essentially what not to do moving into the next year. But if you come away from this episode and you're like, oh no, marketing is going to be one of the priorities that we focus on, and you decide that, yes, you do need help from the outside. Well, now the project isn't hire a marketing agency. The project is prepare a very clear picture of what your marketing efforts have been to date, so that you can begin to interview marketing agencies and see which one is going to serve you the best.
Yes.
That's a totally more refined and defined. So I like how you put it. You're just like, let me give you an example of where we see mistakes already around agencies and how this episode can help us think about it differently.
Well, Nate, obviously we are both content experts at this, and we're kind of speaking off the cuff here, because I'm not sure if you realize this, but you just went to the next point, which is the deeper truth. That's literally what the deeper truth is, and you weren't even looking at the outline.
Lay it on me. What's the
deeper truth? The deeper truth is that marketing magnifies what already exists.
Yes.
And you can't outsource something that you don't even know how it works, because you don't know how to outsource it. And you would think, oh, this is a marketing agency, surely they understand marketing. Yes, hopefully that's true. It hasn't always been true. But the deeper problem is that they can come to you with ideas that might work for a different kind of business, and they have a lot of success with it. But if you don't know how the basic, if you don't know how it works for our industry, I guess is what I'm really trying to say, you won't have any sense of when you should tell them no and when you should tell them yes. And I'll give a perfect example of this, something practical that everyone here can take away. Because if you're working with an agency or you're doing it yourself, I'm just going to give you we've got a live one. This is a live tip right now that's true at the end of 2025. And will probably be true for a long, long time in the future. So if you're listening to this next year, 2026, this is still going to be true. I would put money on it. And it's this. The new hot ad campaign style inside of Google Ads is the Performance Max campaign. And I would recommend that no studio use it. But almost everyone who is familiar with Google Ads, any Google Ads contractor, someone who's certified with Google, will swear up and down that you need a Performance Max campaign. And I am telling you right now that they underperform the kinds of campaigns that I teach in my marketing training. Every time. I've had people who've ignored that advice, they've changed, or they've added a Performance Max campaign, they've always consistently underperformed. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and that's not the point of this episode, because we're staying high level. The point is that if you don't understand that, if you don't understand the basics of the marketing that you are trying to do, then you hire an agency, and the agency probably doesn't even run it past you. And they build a couple Performance Max campaigns for you, and they might get some results, but you could have gotten a lot, but they will blow a lot of money compared to a more efficient and optimized campaign type. But it's the hot thing right now. And so everyone's going to run that. That's like just one example, maybe almost too granular. But I think
it's a good tool example.
Yeah,
it's a great example of an actual tool we use. We reach into the box, our toolbox, and we say, well, what tool should we use? And we turn to the agency, and the agency says, well, this is the tool that everybody else told me to buy. So here, let's use this tool first. And they just pull out, Max Perform, an ad. It's just a tool. And finish your idea, because I'm going to give you one other concrete example that we had specifically from a forum member around this. It's really useful for me.
I'm going to tell you, I think I would just like to hear your concrete example, because this really literally just leads right into the next point. So give your example, and then I'll probably tie them both to our next point.
So we've been working with an awesome school owner for years. I think we've been working with them for 4 years now. And one of the things they came to us with, I'd say about a year and a half
3 years ago
was.
A year. Okay.
I'm speaking specifically to this marketing piece.
Okay.
And they said, hey, I just keep getting too many adult inquiries, and I want to focus primarily on this younger age group. And so they tweaked, but more than 50% of their leads were still adult inquiries, right? And in this case, they're looking specifically for pre-K through, I'd say, 8 to 9 years old. That was the sweet spot. And they really wanted younger families. So they decided to hire an agency that's very reputable, that a lot of music schools use. And they said, well, I'm just going to use an agency, and we'll see how they do. And we were like, hold on, tap the brakes. When you bring this agency on, you need to say very specifically, this is what I've spent, this is what I've tried, and this is the percentage of leads that I've gotten that were in the wrong age group. I'm coming to you because I specifically want you to reduce the number of adult leads I get and increase the number of leads I get within this age range. And what we said to them was that it's really important that every week when you have a check-in, you restate the priority. This is why I've come to you. Because this is the specific outcome that I'm looking for. And so back to your deep truth point, which is you cannot repeat often enough that marketing actually just magnifies what already exists. So unless you set a very concrete intention of changing the lag measure of what you're working on, i.e. the type of lead you want, however specific you need to be, whether it's like zip code, age, instrument, etc. Without specifying very clearly what you're trying to change, you're just going to continue to magnify what you already get. And frankly, and we'll talk about this in a moment, it creates an overwhelm and a chaos. Here you asked for help, and now all of a sudden you're flooded with even more adult leads. You're like, what am I supposed to do? So that's the other concrete example I wanted to give around that deep truth, because this was someone who when they hired this agency, at first, what did they get? Of course, adult leads, right? And then slowly they kept going back to the weekly check-ins and being like, whoa, let's be crystal clear on what it is we're working on here. Right? I trust you to use the right tool, or I trust you to make the right choices in this way and that way, but I'm looking at the lag measure every single week, and I need this to change.
Yeah.
Right.
To tie these two things together, I think both of these are a good example of an owner hearing this that might be listening to the podcast right now or watching it on YouTube. And these are so specific, both of these things are, that there's this sense of overwhelm. And we're going to talk about this later in the episode, because the temptation then is just to abdicate, because someone might say to themselves like, oh, well, that's a highly specific example about that particular person agency. And of course I would know just to tell them I don't want adults. Problem solved.
Yes.
Or they might hear my thing about Google Ads and say like, how in the world would I have known that? And then just, I used the word before, I'll use it again, abdicate. Just kind of throw in the towel and be like, well, I didn't go to music school to later have to go back to marketing school. Like, how in the world would I know all this stuff? And so what ends up happening is things go back to big picture general. And what's the easiest thing to say? And why does the myth persist? Because in the frustration of the minutia, or the chaos of like, well, I have to have my hand on a billion different things, and I have to be managing these teachers and this marketing agency and telling them this and remembering that, remembering this, because you're not delegating, going back to our first episode.
Rewind tape.
Yeah, rewind tape. You basically go back to, well, what's measurable? Let's get as many leads as possible. And so what ends up happening is you feel the pressure of all of this, and you say, okay, well, we're getting 5 leads a month now. What we really need is 20 to 30. And cover the eyes, put the fingers in the ears, and just try to drown it all out and say, look, let's just spend more. Let's do social media. Let's get on TikTok. What do the people in the Facebook group say is working right now? Let's do SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads. And then what ends up happening is you're running a school at 5% margin because there's a lack of efficiency, because you're not being specific enough. Okay. Yeah. So what's the solution? I'm going to get to that. There are a couple misconceptions I want to dive deeper in. And then I think we close the episode on the solution, Nate. And I think the misconceptions themselves and the way to solve them do point towards that solution. But I mean, just to highlight at the beginning is that, and I've said this before, but if we're talking about the big picture thesis going into 2026, like to point to 5 episodes and say, hey, if you take these 5 episodes, these 5 myths that we're talking about, and you just solve these problems, you are probably 90% of the way to getting to having a really profitable music school, right? Big picture solution is that really the CEO's first job, in my opinion, is getting the marketing funnel up, running, fixed, and understanding it enough to manage it or do it themselves. And I've said this before, but I've got a couple books that of some business geniuses that all say this, that really this is what the CEO's primary job is. And until this is automated or delegated successfully, that this really is your biggest concern. It is to deliver money to the company, or to say it the way that Jeff Hoffman says, is that businesses eat cash, and it is your job to feed it. And you do that through a marketing funnel. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, nice. I was going to say.
No, what were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Well, what I was going to say was the way I frame it for myself is we talk about this in the forum all the time, but it's like, as the founder, you first set the vision, but that can feel very sort of woo-wooey, as if it's just like like as if it's just sort of culture and the skin of the thing, but not really the meat and not really the bones and the mechanics of operating a successful music school. But actually, the vision baked into it is saying, hey, this is our hyper specific purpose. And baked into the specific purpose is exactly who we serve and how we serve them, and with what instruments or types of classes, etc. And once you get into that level of specificity, guess what you're talking about? Marketing. Because now all of a sudden you're being hyper specific about exactly the type of funnel you want to build, and you're getting really good at the language to use to describe it. You're asking for help from experts. You're reading those books. You're saying, wait a minute, I don't quite understand the principles or the mechanics of marketing, but I definitely know who it is I want to attract, what type of family, right? And I know what kind of classes I want to run, whether they're a piano express class or a songwriting class, whatever. You're just like, you're starting to hone in on your what, right? And that links to marketing, and which then links to that next piece you said. Our job is to feed the beast because it needs cash. Number
to survive
is, actually number 3 on my list of founders is make sure you never run out of money. Basically, manage your resources, right? Number 2 is build the team to realize that vision. And I'm going to circle it right back to you so we can get in to some of these misconceptions and get to a solution. But number 2 is build the team. And you just said it beautifully when you were like, hey, with a marketing funnel, you yourself first need to really understand what it's like to message effectively, what it's like to manage that funnel. And then you're ready to begin to build the team that can support it, that can run that thing every week. That's where BMF is. It's not like I'm still hyper aware of messaging, Daniel, but I'm definitely not the one posting on Instagram, and I'm definitely not the one making all the emails for the automations and all that anymore. But guess who was once? I was definitely making all the emails for the automations once, and I was definitely trying to create a post that was getting interest. I just now am at a point where we can build teams. So back to you.
And again, you're already anticipating the next point. So I want to come back to result.
Okay, go.
So to tie a bow on the result piece, it is this: if you chase student count but not profit, you're pouring water into a leaky bucket. And I referenced the retention issue before, but I will just say this, and this ties in with the lack of definition theme that is going across the entire episode, or all these episodes, and that is that it's that final piece. It's the last 20 yards before the touchdown. It's, in the 80-20 principle, it's like 20% gives you 80% of the results. If you are like 60 to 70%, maybe even touching 80% of the way there in terms of your understanding of your marketing funnel and how all this works, and your messaging and the clarity of all this and that, and what programs you have and how you present those to your community, this might be the difference between you making 5% profit on the year and 20% profit on the year. Or in the case of you running group lessons like Piano Express or something like that, maybe even 30, 40% profit margins on the year for your entire school, right? And so getting into the specificity of what has to be done inside the marketing funnel and the order in which to do it, that is where you need to have a working knowledge and understanding of marketing deep enough that you can speak knowledgeably about it again, or do it yourself. And that, kind of predates the solution, leads into the solution, which we talked about, but that's where we kind of get into the misconceptions, Nate. And that's what you were just talking about a minute or two ago. So I'm going to sum up the first misconception and then jump into the second one, because you kind of did a really good job of talking about it, but I just want to sum it up. And it's this, and it is kind of the big theme of the episode, which is if I get more students, everything else will fall into place. But the reality of the situation is that even if you were lucky enough to get more students, let's say you did get a marketing agency and they were delivering you a good number of students, It honestly probably means more chaos until you've built retention systems, admin capacity, and cultural infrastructure. And so your marketing might actually work against you if you don't understand the overall of how to run the school and handling all these myths. And you were kind of talking about that just a second ago, and I'm not just going to rehash what you just said because you did a great job of saying it. But I will just say that, this is the lie. That's the first big misconception. The second big misconception, and I see these chronologically because people have the first one, the one we were just talking about, then they have the second one, and once they solve that one, then they then go into a third one, and that's the three misconceptions we're going to talk about here at the end of the episode. Once people realize, okay, so it isn't just about getting more students. Okay, second misconception is if I build it, they will come. Sorry, Kevin Costner, you were wrong 30 years ago. Or 40 years ago now. Oh my goodness. If I build it, they will come. And here's the mistake that gets made. Okay, well, I got to take charge of the marketing. And I've seen this so many times. They throw $500 in the Google ads. They don't get a single lead. They revamp their website, and the conversion rate, if they're even measuring it, is still basically floor level. It's like close to zero or zero. They do all these things. There's all this activity. And then there's this sense of frustration or helplessness, or worse yet, powerlessness, because it's like, well, I'm doing marketing and I'm getting nothing. Because the problem is that the way that most school owners or studio owners conceive of marketing is just showing up, a straightforward telling of what they, the owner, think is important. That's the misconception. But the reality of the situation is that you actually have to learn what makes marketing work. You have to learn the tools, like Google ads, Facebook ads, and that's where most people saw, website, great. But more importantly, you have to learn the psychology behind what makes marketing work. And only then will you experience success. And that is getting into like evolutionary psychology. That's getting into what is persuasive, what is not. That is getting into what one of my mentors called see-through, where you're seeing through the eyes of your customer and you're looking at your own marketing material, your own program, or your own business through the eyes of the customer, then giving an honest evaluation of what they're seeing, not what you think they're seeing. You actually have to see as them. And so you cannot just do marketing. You have to do it the right way. In the same way that you can't just play the notes on the page, you have to do it with phrasing and musicality and structure, and paying attention to the rules of the style in which you're playing. You can't play a jazz song the way you'd play a Mozart song. You can't play a Mozart song the way you play a jazz song. There are rules to what makes these things work, and until you know them, you're just going to show up for the participation trophy and be found wanting.
I wonder, Daniel, if we might, since it's coming up on the holidays, just give our listeners a gift of maybe 1 to 3 books that we know helped us begin to understand the principles of marketing. Because I couldn't agree more that marketing is one of those areas. Like, I started with studying marketing, and then I think from there I went to finances, and then from after that I went to systems, probably. But
that was my growth track too. The exact same way. Yeah.
Yeah, totes. And so I feel like marketing, let's just maybe mention 1 or 2 books. I don't have my bookshelf here in Studio 9 at the factory, but I can give 1 or 2 we've talked about before.
I'm pretty sure we've done a whole episode on marketing books. I can't remember. Maybe we'll check and put it in the show notes. But I mean,
okay, that would be amazing.
Right off the bat, I'm gonna be honest from my perspective. I have found that the marketing resources that have been most helpful to me were actually marketing courses, because it blended the practical with the technical. And a lot of books tend to be more big picture, but not technical, because the tools of the trade change over time. And so I have read a lot of marketing books, but they've all been so general that I literally had to go to marketing courses before I saw change. So for instance, there's a book called the one book I know I'd recommend is hyper targeted on only one part of the funnel. It's called The Ultimate Sales Letter. It's by Dan Kennedy. That is the one book that consistently comes to mind. But even like, for instance, Scale by Jeff Hoffman, who I was just talking about a few minutes ago. There's a section of that book called Marketing, but it's more about the overall architecture of your system. And it isn't even that specific. It just gives you a framework to think about. I'll give you another example. There's a whole marketing section in the personal MBA, not NBA, not the National Basketball Association.
About that one.
Yeah. But personal MBA, it has a whole marketing section, but I don't know if someone could read that book and then translate the principles and suddenly have a working marketing funnel for their music studio. And so I'm going to shamelessly say this. If you want a working marketing funnel for your music studio, you need to take something that is industry specific, like my marketing training, period, full stop. Don't apologize for it. I've seen people double their income in under a year because they took that training. I've seen people do it in under 6 months. But when it came to me understanding how to make a marketing funnel work, like it really came down to a specific training I took on Google Ads in 2012 is a big part of what changed for me. And there's no book that could have done what that course did. Specific trainings I took on stair-step marketing by Eben Pagan, which isn't even available anymore, but that got into the nitty-gritty of it. So, yeah, I think I'm not so sure about books. Now, having said that, I'm not going to discount what you would say, Nate, because maybe you've read different books than I have,
No, a lot of the training I did in terms of the techniques, the tools, were through, for example, the CRM that we used gave an enormous amount of training, and I did that.
So specific.
It was all about being hyper specific on how to maximize the CRM, but doing it in a wise way. And then, of course, I love books like Start With Why. Like
again, big picture.
In general, it's big picture. But for me, and that I love that the personal MBA you brought up, because I was going to bring that up. Because for me, I always think it's like, at least for the way I've learned, I have to balance between big picture and very specific coursework. And some technical work. So anyways, we got to bring this sucker home, but I think we really do. Yeah, that's a nice, I just wanted to put it out there because people are like, I need to get better at marketing. Is there anything I can specifically do in the next month or two?
Yeah.
Well, there's a few books you can look at. There's a course you can sign up to take, etc.
And I'll even say this, and then we can move to the final misconception and knock this out, is that in the show notes, I will put a link to a free part of my marketing training that just talks about metrics. Like literally, if you take this one session, which is it's like 1/50th, it's like 2% of my marketing training, but it's complete. It's the full part of the marketing training just around how to track your metrics. And that alone could help you see what's wrong with your business, with your studio business. So we'll put that in the show notes. It's part of my paid marketing training, but I'll provide it here for free. Final misconception, and I said these were chronological because first misconception that people has is, just more leads, that'll solve our money problem. And then they're like, that's a problem. Okay, well let's just tweak and tinker with the marketing system. If we build it, they'll come. Guess what? They don't. So then what's the next problem that people have? That's when they say, let's get someone else to do it. And so they will either try to outsource to an agency or insource by hiring someone. It's like, my nephew, he's on TikTok. I'm sure he'll be able to figure this out. Or it's like, this person or this other person in my community, they are swearing by this person. Let me hire them. Or they go to someone in the business or one of the admins like, hey, could you post some content for us? And then just go look at these other studios and just try to post some content that looks like that. And the problem with all this, the reality of the situation is that, and this has been the theme of the episode, marketing starts with the owner. You can delegate tactics, but you can't outsource clarity of message and promise and purpose. And until your marketing is imbued with clarity, until it has a persuasive message, until you're using the technical tools correctly, until you understand the overall purpose of why your business even exists in the world, all the tactics in the world will not save you. Google Ads will not save you.
The key here is to think. I'm gonna maybe end with one of my opening reframes based on your just your comment on need for specificity, et cetera, which is essentially the core principle of this episode. And that is that so often we as owners think we think our life is binary. We think right now the switch is, I don't know what I'm doing, and what I need to do is just switch it to, I know what I'm doing.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
That's a good distinction. Yeah.
But that's not at all how we have operated our company to date. We've essentially decided that we're going to begin the process of learning how to do something effectively. And so if you're thinking about your plan right now for the next year, and you're thinking, I need to fix my marketing, I need to go from it doesn't work to it does work, that's not a plan. That's not a project. Let me give you a very specific project. Okay, I'm going to move from an owner who is vague and imprecise in their messaging. And so I'm going to do 3 things in my Q1 project. I'm going to read these 2 books. I'm going to sign up and take Daniel's marketing class, or at the very least, use the free metrics dashboard resource he's giving you. And I'm going to practice doing X, Y, and Z with my messaging. Like, for example, I'm going to A/B a single landing page on my site, and I'm just going to see which one works better. That's actually a project where you are moving from not so clear on what to do with marketing to getting a little bit smarter about it. So just do yourself a favor and remove this mind of the binary switch that you're toggling from, dumb to smart, from vague to precise. Just instead create a project that's around you evolving as an owner, getting smarter with marketing. And Daniel's not saying, you either have it or you don't. He's saying, do these specific things. By the way, in 2012, I took this specific Google Ads course, and it was a game changer for me. That's a concrete action that shows up in an annual plan. So you have a choice around this. You can just debunk these myths right now by taking them on one at a time.